morning everybody, good morning, it's JPR and welcome back to another video. Unless your first name is Bugsy, in which case you are probably dreading clicking on this one. Bug types have always sorta gone hand in hand with normal types as the stereotypical early game type that may be slightly useful for the first leg of the game, but usually ends up sucking not long after that. But how much of that has to do with the type itself, and how much has to do with the Pokemon and their poor stats? Well, let's break it down, shall we? Okay, so in Gen 1, there's no sugarcoating it. Bug types are pretty bad. Even in the beginning stage of the game, where they're supposed to be decent because they evolve so fast, you have Brock gatekeeping their potential just a few steps outside the Viridian Forest. Come to think of it, this actually happens in the first 4 gens. Aren't you literally defeating the whole point of bugs? Bug type also had slightly different attributes in Gen 1, as they were super effective against poison types, but poison was also super effective against them. You can imagine which side benefits from this way more. Not only are there substantially more poison types in this gen, in fact, basically 1 out of every 5 Pokemon from Kanto is part poison, which is a crazy stat, but also, most bug types can't even fight back. In this gen, there are only 4 bug type moves. String Shot doesn't do damage, Leech Life is only 20 base power, Pin Missile is literally only teachable to Beedrill and Jolteon, and Twin Needle is Beedrill's signature move. So out of the 6 fully evolved bug types in this gen, only Beedrill can realistically do damage with bug type moves. But as you'd imagine, it's Beedrill, these stats can only carry you so far. Aside from Erica's gym where it can nearly one-shot anything, the rest of the game and the competitive landscape by extension is a monumental struggle. The only bug type in this gen with somewhat decent stats is Scyther, but Scyther sadly suffers from a horrendous move pool that leaves it unable to do damage to many common Pokemon. For reference, its only stab move in this generation is Wing Attack, which had a pitiful base 35 power. So right off the bat, bug types are not looking too stellar. And as a result, they would have to play catch-up in Gen 2, which ultimately proved to be a mixed bag. They lost their weakness to poison, but also lost their ability to deal super effective damage to poison types. Overall, this was probably a good thing though, as bug moves were still incredibly scarce in this gen. Fury Cutter gets introduced here, which just takes way too long to become good, and has a chance to miss, meaning you gotta roll that snowball all over again. And Mega Horn is exclusive to Heracross, who doesn't even learn it until level 54. Thank you, Gen 2, another Pokemon I won't be using for the main story. Humorously, most bug types actually use Hidden Power Bug as their primary attacking move in this gen, since it's all they can really get. And while this gen definitely continued to give us some stinkers, such as Ledion, Ariados, Shuckle, and Yanma, Pokemon so bad I don't think they'd even be usable in the main story, on the flip side, it also gave us some really good ones. Heracross, let's just pretend it's level 100 and you're playing on Showdown, Scizor, and Forretress are all forces to be reckoned with. As well as Scyther, who finally has decent attacking moves between a newly buffed Wing Attack and the aforementioned Hidden Power Bug. Huh, maybe things are on the right track. Surely they can't lose all their momentum in the next gen, right? Yeah, about that. We got reskinned Butterfree, twice, essentially the same Pokemon, also twice, with even fewer redeeming factors. Masquerain, who has the move pool of an attacker but the stats of a homeless man. Ninjask, who just gives buffs to other Pokemon through Baton Pass, before it got banned at least. And Shedinja, who was somehow introduced in a gen where Focus Sash didn't exist yet. This isn't just the squad of nightmares, this is the 2017 Cleveland Browns. How can you introduce so many Pokemon and have all of them be atrocious? Except Armaldo, who is like, okay for this gen only. Abilities were also introduced in this generation, but they felt more like an insult to injury, as most of the bug-type exclusive abilities like Swarm, Shed Skin, and Shield Dust are really bad compared to what other types got. Compound Eyes is pretty much the only decent one they have going for them, but at this point it's only exclusive to Butterfree, and I mean pre-Quiver Dance Butterfree, but we'll get there. But before then, we have Gen 4 to tackle, and oh boy, our first broken bug type, Arceus. Yeah, I know, that's cheating. Don't worry guys, at least we have Mothim, or Wormadam Trash. It's a steel type, it can't be that bad. No, it actually is that bad. Okay, hear me out. Drapion. Oh, what do you mean he lost his bug typing when he evolved? Ah, he's a poison dark type now, and it's actually way better. Okay then. Well, at least Kricketune has that cool cry, and sadly that might be the only thing bug type is remembered for in this gen. Well, maybe not. Yanmega is our first decent addition since Gen 2. Between Speed Boost and Tinted Lens with an actual usable special attack stat on top, this Pokemon can do some real damage. This gen also finally introduced our first good and widely usable bug-type moves, Bug Buzz and X-Scissor, removing the need to run Hidden Power Bug on everything, which honestly just isn't even worth it for the main story. U-Turn is definitely worth mentioning too, although it actually ended up being far more useful on faster non-bug-type Pokemon. But the important thing is, the seeds had been sown for future success, and while it didn't immediately happen, the results were coming soon. Kinda like how you can get results by subscribing to this channel. You'll get all kinds of cool Pokemon content for free, so why not? Enter Gen 5, probably the single biggest glow-up for bug types. We have Excelgor, one of the fastest Pokemon in the game that can play support or be a special sweeper. Crustle, another good support Pokemon with the added surprise of Shell Smash. Durant. Okay, not that one. Galvantula, a great glass cannon sweeper who could easily pivot with Volt Switch. Scolipede, who wasn't good at this point, but he would be eventually. And he looks cool, so there's that. And of course, Volcarona. Don't let that double weakness of Stealth Rock fool you. This thing is one of the scariest setup Pokemon in Gen 5 singles. Which brings me to my next talking point. Gen 5 only had to introduce one move to retroactively make many bug types good. Quiver Dance. This move actually makes Pokemon like Butterfree, Mothim, Beautifly, and others decently usable. I didn't say good, I said usable. And I didn't even mention Genesect, the first bug type to ever be banned to Ubers. Not counting Arceus Bug this time. Even if you're just playing the main story, seeing as how Grass, Psychic, and Dark are all really prominent types in the Unova region, bugs are actually a good option to run on a casual team for maybe the first time ever. And Gen 6 would continue this trend by giving us Vivian! Oh, you've gotta be kidding me. That's the only one? Well, at least Mega Pinsir, Mega Caesar, and Mega Beedrill all exist, although, I'll be honest, them being really good has nothing to do with the broader bug type as a whole, and more just them being blessed with ridiculously over-the-top tools. Mega Beedrill is just particularly funny because they literally had to obliterate its special attack stat to give it even more stat buffs, and Scolipede, as we mentioned earlier, got a huge buff with the addition of Speed Boost. But yeah, bug as a whole doesn't really change in this generation, it's just a few broken Megas doing the heavy lifting. And unfortunately, Gen 7 was more or less kinda the same. Yeah, the Leech Life buff to 80 base power here was pretty massive, though it surprisingly affects very few relevant bug types. Like, congrats Parasect, you finally have a decent stab move, but you still let a fire instantly, so it doesn't really matter. This basically only affected some of the newcomers like Golisopod and Buzzwole, but not many others. And again, while you still have the bug-type Megas here, and Pheromosa, who is just ridiculous, not much is happening for pre-existing bug types. And as a result, it's starting to feel like the type is getting left behind again. Ice receives pretty substantial buffs across the board in Gen 7, as did Poison in Gen 6 with the introduction of Fairies, but literally nothing has been done to make bugs any better since Gen 5. And in Gen 8, this would continue to get worse. Pretty much every new bug type introduced here is a flop. Their designs are all cool, but Orbeetle, Frostmoth, and Centiskorch put together do as much damage to the meta as an insect does to a car windshield. This isn't like Gen 4 and Gen 5 where new moves and abilities are being introduced to retroactively make the type better. Pretty much nothing is going on here. First Impression becomes more widely available, but Durant is literally the only bug type who receives it outside of Golisopod. Same for Pollen Puff, which ironically goes to tons of grass types, but no new bug types. And now that Megas have been phased out, it's very apparent that a handful of strong contenders were the only thing propping this type up for the last few gens. And sure, Gen 9 did help out, giving us some new great bug types like Low-Kicks and Slitherwing, and for a very brief moment in time, Masquerain actually reached the top tier out of nowhere, and quickly fell off as soon as better Pokemon from home showed up. But once again, that doesn't solve the broader problem. Only one new widely available bug type move was introduced, and that's Pounce at base 50 power. It's literally just a worse version of Lunge from Gen 7. I'm sorry, but this isn't really moving the needle. And it kinda surprises me that while Game Freak has tried so hard to buff other underused types the last few gens, that they've done next to nothing for Bug. This type is essentially a no-show in VGC thanks to how many weaknesses it has. The only Pokemon I can think of that occasionally sees usage in VGC this gen would be Volcarona, but it's not exactly the popular kid in town anymore either. Honestly, this type has just been neglected for so long. Gen 5 was the last time it received any kind of substantial type-wide buffs, and even then, they immediately followed it up by introducing Fairies the next gen. Why do Fairies even resist Bug? They aren't even real! You could have easily reversed this! You already reversed Bug's effectiveness on Poison, would Fairies actually be that much worse if they were weak to Bug? It also doesn't help that the types that resist Bug are some of the most power-crept types in recent gens. Steel, Fairy, Fire, Ghost. These types are all leveling up extremely fast and becoming way more common, making the meta even more hostile towards bugs than it already was. So, long story short, unless they introduce a bug-type terrain like in Pokemon Masters, or change one of its weaknesses to a resistance, I don't know if Bug is ever going to be that good of a type. It's one of the few types with no additional attributes. They don't have a party trick up their sleeve like Dark types blocking Prankster, or Grass types being immune to Spore. And maybe that's something they could add, like maybe they could take less damage from spread moves so they don't instantly die to Rock Slide and doubles. I don't know, it's a start, but probably not the best solution. So how would you fix Bug-type Pokemon? Let me know in the comments down below. But don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more videos just like this one. I'll see you guys next time.